To start this course, you will need first to download a code editor. So I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. This is the most known code editor and used on the market. This code editor provides what we call a terminal, and this terminal will be used to install the project, etc., etc. Once you've downloaded Visual Studio Code, you may need to get Node on your computer. If Node is not installed, go on Node.js.dev and click on Download Node. And here you get the last version of Node.js. Once it is done, we can start installing Vue.js, and what we're going to do, we are going to use Vite. Vite, it's a tool that helps us to create quickly application without all the packages, all the big luggage that provide JavaScript framework. So if I click on Get Started and I arrive here, we see down here that I can install Vite, the latest version. So I'm going to open my terminal on Visual Studio Code, and to do that you go on Terminal, New Terminal, and here I'm going to type npm init Vite latest. So I'm going to zoom a little bit, npm init Vite latest. All right. So I'm going to type enter, and now I'm going to create a project. So basically, if you want to start by doing this, you might be in the right folder. So I'm going to stop the operation, and in here I want to put my project inside my dev folder. So in here I can type again npm init Vite latest. All right. So what I can do now, I can call my project. So here it's going to be Vuejs Vue free tutorial. All right. And in here I got to choose the right framework. So basically we are on Vue. You see that you can do it with React, with Svelte, with also Vanilla. So here I'm going to choose Vue. Here we are going to choose Vue again. We are not going to learn TypeScript today. And once it is done, all right, I've got my project called Vue tutorial. So I'm going to type cd Vue free tutorial, enter, and in here I'm going to type code point because I want to open it inside my code editor. All right, so once it's done, I open again the terminal, and here I'm going to type npm install, because here what I got, it's the whole Vite Vue.js project. And what we have a package.json, and this package.json got dependencies. And here we see that we are using the Vue free version. And we need to install it. Once it is done, you will see that you have a node module folder up there. This is what is going to help us, the package, to manage our project. So once it's installed, you type npm run dev, like developer, enter, and now you see that on localhost 3000, you've got your application running. We see that we have our application running. Let's look a little bit closer to the architecture. Let's look a little bit at the architecture of a Vue.js project. So you might have a dist folder if you already try to build the application. We build application at the end when we want to put them into production. We are not going to see this on the course. Then you have a node modules that we don't check because it's package managed by the project. We've got a public folder that we are not going to use, but the whole project that we are focusing on, it's on the source folder, okay? So the source folder contains everything that is inside the application. So basically you get the assets, and the assets, it's most of the time all the styles and the image. So you put them, all of them, inside this folder. But the two files we are focusing on, it's the main.js file and the app.vue. So first, the main.js file is importing a function called createApp from Vue. And this function, as its name said, is creating the app. And this application, this function needs as an argument a Vue file. It means that this Vue file is supposed to be the Vue file of the entire application, the first file of the app, so the root file. Basically, all the components are supposed to go to the app.vue, but we will see that between the app.vue and components, we can put what we call views. So let's look a little bit at this app.vue, and this is the essence of Vue.js, and this is why I like a lot this framework. This is because in a Vue.js file you can do HTML, as we see on top of it in here, between the two template tags, and of course every time all the Vue.js files have the same architecture. So the template is in here, so here it's HTML, all right? And then you get the script, and the script, of course, it's JavaScript. So up there, you are going to put some HTML, and the JavaScript from this HTML, you can put it in here. And on the bottom, you got the style, okay, which is the CSS that will be applied in here. But be safe. If you put a class in here, and you put the class in the HTML of another Vue file, you might get the CSS from this other Vue file. We will see that later. All right, so our application is running. Let's remove a bit of CSS, for instance, so the color, the text align, the font, and save. And when we get back, we see that the application is automatically running the code we just wrote. So when you make changes, the application, of course, while it's still running on your terminal, will upload for you. All right, let's write some code now together inside our first Vue file. Okay, so what I propose you to do is to remove everything that is inside the app.vue file that we've got in here, okay? So now our application is totally empty. So as I told you, what we want to do, we want to start by creating a template. And this template is going to be the root of our website. If you have done some HTML, you used to create an HTML tag, a head, and a body, etc., etc. Here, it's really different. The HTML tag and the head are automatically done, and what you just need to do is to create what we call a template. So basically, I'm going to type template, and here, the template tag, which is from HTML5, need to have a root element. So it means that here I can create a div with hello, for instance. Okay? So when I get back, I get my div in here. Amazing. But what if I put a second hello, an hello2, for instance? Okay? It appears that I got my hello2 appearing. But this is a bad practice. What you should do, you should have only one root, okay? Just in here. So basically, we would have a div in here and hello, there we go, not a date. And here, good indented. And there we go. And if I inspect a little bit closer, okay, I got my root in here. Amazing. So I wrote some HTML, this is really nice, but let's say that I want to write some JavaScript. What I need to do now is to create a script tag, and inside the script tag there is of course an export default. So if I remove this export default and I put console log, for instance, as you might know if you did some JavaScript before, and I inspect, we see that my JavaScript is executed. But why do we export default? In this export default, what we can do, we can use the power of Vue.js. What I mean by power of Vue.js? Vue.js provides to you many tools that you can use to go faster in your declaration. And this is what we are going to see Now, for instance, in JavaScript, you know that you can declare a variable, okay, like this. My variable is hello, all right? And here, this variable, you want to display it inside your element, inside your HTML tags. So basically, in Vue.js, to declare variables, you need to type data, which is a function, and you return inside this data your variable. So data, it's a returning object. And in here, I can put my variable, and like I'm in an object, I can put a string. So I can put my name, so Guillaume. So here it's going to be name. All right, okay. Why do we do this instead of putting a regular variable? We do it because we want it to be reactive. It means that if I change Guillaume in here my data is reactive. So what I can do here, I can remove this. I want to display, I want to access Guillaume. In Vue.js, the double curly brackets help you to access your variable inside data. So here I can put name, and if I get back and I update, there we go. I got my hello Guillaume. So I'm going to zoom a little bit. All right. And of course, this name could be a number. All right. It could be an array with a string number. Okay. Or an object, for instance, with name again and Guillaume. Okay. All right. And of course, if you wanna loop through the object, you can do it this way. Okay? Sorry, it's person.name. There we go. All right? So you can access this element. This is what we call the data binding. So we bind the data in here inside our template in here. So we can go really, really further, like putting an age, of course, an age of 33. I know I'm old. And is developer, for instance, is dev and true, which is a Boolean, of course. So here I got my name. My age is person.age. Div, I am a dev. But the thing is, all right, but the thing is, if I don't want to display I am a dev, let's say that I wasn't a dev, so my Boolean would be on false. How can I do it? Which is cool with Vue.js is that you can use the custom directives of Vue.js. So in here, I can type if, like an if condition of JavaScript, person.isDev. Okay? And what is appearing, so here I'm going to update. There we go. We see that I'm not a dev. But if I put isDev on true, I am a dev is appearing. Let's say that if I don't want to have, I am not a dev. How can I do it? How can I do this if else? You can simply type v-else just after a v-if. So if I get back, I update, so I am a dev on true, and if I put it on false, I am not a dev. So this is how we bind data in here. Let's see now in the next lesson how to change this data, how to interrupt our process and, of course, change the data dynamically. All right, let's say that here I want to increase my age every time I click on some button. So here I'm going to create a button, increase my age, okay? How can I bind a click method to this button? I can use again a custom directive with the @ element will help me to select the directive that I want to select. So here I'm going to put on click. And what I want to do is to say %++. Okay? And just this little piece of code we just wrote will help me to change the variable that we got down here. So I'm going to get back, going to update again, okay? And I'm going to click on increase my age, and look at that. My age is increasing. How is that possible? It is because of the data binding. We have bound our data inside data here to the template. And when we change this data, dynamically, it calls our template and says update the HTML. And this is really cool because before in JavaScript Vanilla, you're supposed to write a lot of JavaScript to do that. All right? So here with the click method, you could do a lot of things. But let's say I want to increase my age and change my name at the same time. How can I do this? We cannot here like chain what we want to do. What we would like to do is to create a function. And this function can be bound also in methods. So here, methods is an object that will contain all the function bound to our local Vue.js file in here. So we are going to create this function, so increase my age and change my name. Well, it's a bit long as a name, I'm sorry about it. But I'm going to open here, and what I want to do, I want to increase the age. So what I'm going to do here, put increase my age and also person.name. So we're going to do this. It's going to be Kevin. Okay? But the thing is that here, so basically I should bind first my method to the click. So instead of this, I'm going to put increase my age and change my name. But the thing here is that person is nothing inside this context. Remember in JavaScript, between the curly brackets, you have a context. And you can inherit from the parents, but you do not give to the children. So basically, when I get back in here, I'm going to update. And when I'm going to click, I'm going to have an error. And if I look at the error closely, we see that this person is not defined. So how do I refer to this person? In Vue, like in React, you have this referring key, which is this. This is the whole application. So Vue.js is in JavaScript. So you get a big object with a context, and in this context, at the build, it will put all the referring elements of your whole application. But I can have a person in App.vue, and I could have another person in another Vue file. And those two contexts are very different. When I put this, I'm referring to this context and not to the whole application context. So let's try now what we just did, and let's see if my name is changing and my age increasing. And when I click, there we go. Okay? Amazing. It changed my name and my age. But now, guys, let's do a last thing. Let's create an array and put Guillaume inside of it, and put a new person called Kevin. And let's say that his age is 23. All right? How do I change the two elements at the same time? And how do I display them? Let's see that in the next lesson. In the last lesson, we created two persons in the person array. We want to display the two persons. So we want to loop through the persons array. So first, what I'm going to do is to remove this, let the button, because we are going to use it, and then remove also. Okay? I want to loop through those persons. So what can I do? What I can use is v_for. And v_for, it's going to loop the HTML element on a list number that you are going to give to this function. So basically, v_for needs to refer to an array or an object or a list where you want to loop through. Here, I'm going to put item, and I want to loop through items in what? Here in persons, okay? And not in this person. You don't need the this inside the template. He knows that he refers to this element. And for each item in person, so every object, we want to display first a name. So here I'm going to put item because I'm referring to the item, not to persons anymore. So every item, so here, Kevin and Guillaume, they have a name. And also they have an age. Let's get back and look at what we have. So I'm going to unzoom because we also got an error. And it says to us that we need to have a key. And if you want to use v_for, you always need to put a key to the element you're looping through, because the HTML template has to be ordered. An index, it's Guillaume is in position 0, Kevin is in position 1, etc., etc. So here I can catch it by typing here item index. So basically in here we've got here the value, and here we've got the index. So here I can put item index. All right. Here I get back, and what do we get? We've got all our elements looped. So here I'm going to put age, and here I'm going to put name. All right. And there we go, which is really cool. So basically, I'm not going to put paragraph, but I'm going to put some spans. And there we go. Okay. So here we've got, we need to put, there we go. So remember, we want to increase the age. So I'm going to create a new increase ages. Okay. And there we go. So what we could do first is to loop through persons and to map actually and say increase the age. So here I can put this person dot map, and in here I'm going to return x.age plus plus. So basically it's going to loop through persons, and the map is going to increase the age. So if I get in here, we see that it changes dynamically every element of our array. All right, so let's say that I just want to increase Guillaume. What I can do is to pass my item as an argument. And I can have my person in here. Okay? And what I can do, we can say that here I can, actually I'm going to show you first the person. So here I'm going, and there we go. And when I click, look at it, I've got my element in here, which is name Guillaume and age 33. So what I can do, once I get the person, I can increase its age. And when I update, there we go. We see that we can increase the age of the person. You could also, of course, refer to the item index. So let's say that this person's item index that we would have in here, for instance, okay, age plus plus, and it will also work. All right. So this is how you loop through elements with Vue.js, and you can create dynamic function through these elements. All right, let's create a to-do list together. So in here, I'm going to create an input type text. This input, okay, There we go. I will put up there a div saying add a to-do. Okay. I'm going to zoom. All right, when I type in here, I want to display an element with the text. Okay, so what we want to do first is to know how can I bind this input to a value. So here I can put undefined as a value. And here, if I put value down here, I want to display the value that I type in input. Okay, so here we don't see anything showing up. We can use the directive vModel. And vModel is going to bind the current element. So here is going to be an input, but it could be a checkbox, a radio checkbox, etc., etc., a select. It's going to be bound to an element, and in here is going to be a value. Okay? So when I get back and I update and I type hello, we see that dynamically my value, okay, is appearing, and if I remove it, my value is displayed, etc., blah, 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 blah. All right. So we bound an input to a value. Amazing. But this is not exactly what we want to do. We want to push this value inside an array. So here we've got a to-do list to create. All right. And when I type my value, I want to push it to my list. So first, let's say that we have some list to display. So go to the dentist, feed the cat. So I'm going to remove this. And down here, I'm going to type again my to-do list. Okay? So my to-do list, which is here. So what I want to display here, I can display a list. So I'm going to type UL, and inside my list, we just saw how to loop through elements. So here we can use the v-for, as we saw in the previous lesson. So I'm going to put the key. So here I can put again item and item index in to-do list. Of course, the key is going to be the item key in here. All right, and here I'm going to put my item. And there we go, we've got our element in here. We are displaying the to-do list. So I got my value, and now I'm going to put a button, add to to-do list. Okay? So add to to-do list. So I got my button in here. I could put just an add, actually. And when I click, what I want to do, I want to push the value to to-do list. So I can type to-do list dot push, the method to push to elements, my value. All right, so let's try. So go to the dentist, feed the cat, do some sport, some exercise, sorry, and I push on add, and there we go. We see that now I got my do some exercises. And if I remove this and I put drink water, there we go. We've got our to-do list completing. But I want to remove the text of value when I click on add. So what I can do, I'm going to copy paste, add to do, create a method, again, add to do, and here referring to my to-do list push value. And here what I can do, which is interesting, is that when they pushed this value inside our to-do list, so the value in here, I can put this value to undefined again. So it will empty our input in here. Let's try. So I got my add to do empty. So I'm going to put drink water. And when I'm going to click, drink water is on the list and my add to do is empty. Feed the cat again. All right? So this is a really good exercise to show you that you can push elements dynamically, bind other elements, and congratulations because you've created your first little app in Vue.js. All right, let's talk now about the components logic. Until now, we've worked on the app.vue file that we got in here. But let's say that instead of having this li in here, so this list element we loop through, let's say that we want to put this piece of code inside another file and import this file in here and display it in here. Why? Because we don't want to have a very long piece of code and we would like to externalize, put the logic inside another file and call it when we need it. This is what we call a component. So in your component folder, you actually right now you got this hello world component. Don't look at it. We are going to get back on it later. We are going to create our first Vue file together. So here I'm going to create a to-do list.vue. All right? And like every Vue file, what we need to do, if you follow very well this course, you know that you need to start by creating your template. And let's say that here we are going to copy paste this piece, so the to-do list, and we want to have it in here. Okay? So it's working because we just have one element at the root of the template. All right? So the thing is, remember, to-do list in here doesn't exist in here. And what we will need to do is to give from app to to-do list our to-do list array. All right? So we are going to do this just after. But first, to display our to-do list, so I'm going to remove this, get back. All right? I don't have my to-do list anymore. Okay? So what I want to do is to go here on script, and on the JavaScript part, we are going to import our component. So I'm going to type import, and my component is named to-do list. From where it comes from? It comes from my components folder. So I got to go on my component folder and import to-do list. Okay, I have imported to-do list, but now I need to register it inside app.vue, my component. So I go on components in here, okay, and component is an object, and here I put to-do list. All right, but what I want to do here is to put to-do list like this, because to-do list is like an HTML tag now. It's an element that you want to call, and you call to-do list like this. All right? So when I get back to my application and I update, nothing appears. Why? Because in to-do list, we've got the to-do list variable. So what we're going to do, we are going to call it to-do list array. Okay? To-do list array to don't make a mistake between components and array. Between my array in here and in here, this is two different variables. It's like you create your script part. It's like you have in here a variable called to-do list array, which is empty because here there is nothing. And in here, the to-do list is full. So what we want to do, we want to pass the to-do list, which is here, so containing all the list, to my element, my component in here. So app is supposed to be the parent and to-do list the children. What we are going to use is what we call props. So props, okay, are declared, of course, inside export default. And I'm going to type props. And props is an object. And what is a props? It's just like a tube. It's like a channel where you pass data. And you have to declare a name for this channel. So here, let's say that we are going to call it myProp. And myProp is an object that you have to declare. And there is two elements to declare. The first element is the type. So here, myProps is going to be an array. All right? And the second element is its default value. Because it doesn't take a default value, it's going to crash. So here, it's an object returning an array. If it would be a string, you just put a string. A number, you put 0. An object, you put a function with this, a boolean, a default value to true and false. So now I got myProp. And myProp actually is going to be here. But before doing this, let me show you how myProp is going to look like. So here, double curly brackets, and I'm going to look at myProp. And here, of course, myProp is an array by default. The array is empty. Back in app.vue, what I can do is to say myProp with the 2 points before, because it's a dynamic value. If you don't put it, it won't work. What is myProp in here? MyProp is to-do list array. I want to pass to-do list array from here to here. And every time it will change, myProp will know that here we are going to change the data. So when I get back, what I got the data coming from the parent. And if I put drink water, he understands. All right? Back in here, I have myProp. So I can display again my list. But my list doesn't take to-do list array. It takes myProp. So if I put myProp, I get back, and there we go. We've got our element. Let's explain again what we did in here. We've created a component, which is the list we want to display. This component list, okay, is taking a prop. It needs the data from the parent. We put the prop in here, we declare it inside the component, and when we get the data, we can display our element. Let's doing now another component which will be called by our first component. So we've got our to-do list, and let's say that we got a new component called to-do.vue. If you understand well, you've got to create a template, of course, and here I'm going to take this list item. And in this list item, actually, I don't need to loop, because what I'm going to do now is to loop through the to-do element, the to-do component. So in my to-do list, I'm going to import my to-do from here, to-do. And of course, I need to declare my components. All right. To-do. All right. And what is to-do? To-do, it's a list element. And it needs to get a prop because it doesn't know what is item. So what we can do again is to create my prop. So props, my internal, let's say to-do. It's good. So there is a type, and here the type is going to be a string, and the default is going to be this. And here what I can do is to do is going to be item. All right. So here up there I need to display my to do element, and when I get back and I update, there we go. So app has a child called to-do list has a child called to do, and we pass all the props down here. And if we update, I forgot to update here to-do list array, but if I get back in here and I put drink water, you see that the data is fulfilled and pass from children to children. Drink water pass from app.vue to to-do list and to do. All right, let's say that we want to remove the list and put it to an empty state. Okay, so what we could do is to create a function called remove list. All right, and this to do list array, okay, which would be equal to an empty array. And when I click on a button, I want to remove this this list. So here I can say remove list, so I can type remove list or empty list, whatever. So here I get back, I update, and when I click, my list is empty. Okay, amazing. But what if this button were on to-do list component? What if, let's say that at the end of my list I would have a button called empty list. When I click, nothing happens because my method is not inside the component. So what I need to do is to take my method in here and put my function in here. But remember, in here, to-do list doesn't exist. It's supposed to be my prop. So let's try to change my prop. So I get back in here, I update, and when I click, I get an error. Because it will say to me that it's not possible to change the value of another component from this component directly by a method in here. What we need to do here for a component to say to another to do an action, it's to emit an event. We need to emit an event. And how do we emit an event? This event can be emitted with the $emit function, which is provided by Vue. So here I'm going to say remove list. All right? So here when I'm going to click on remove list, it's going to emit an event. But all right, cool. If I get back on my application and I click, nothing happens. I gotta catch this emit event. Okay? Where I need to catch, it's in app.vue. And I need app.vue to listen to to-do list. In order to do so, I got to go on my to-do list component in here, put an @ and the name of the event. So the name of the event we put was remove list. Okay? So on remove list, I ask him to do an action. And in here, it's going to be a new function that we are going to create, which will be empty list. So when I'm going to click on remove list in here, it's going to emit an event which is called remove list. And here on remove list, when an event is going to be clicked, app.vue is going to trigger an empty list function. So I'm going to console, please empty your to-do list. All right. So get back in here, let's check. There we go. We see that on app.vue, we have a message, please empty your to-do list. So on click, it emits the event, the event is catch in here, and what I can do is to say that the to-do list is going to be empty. And now it is working from the to-do. Okay, from the to-do list, we can empty the list. To finish, let's go deeper. Let's say that what we want to have is here a button inside our list which will be remove this to-do. Okay? Donc we are going to call remove this to-do, which will be a function inside every list that we have. So I'm going to create this method. Okay, all right. So when I get back here, we see that I got this remove to-do. How do I emit this event from a really deep child like this? I can remove this one because I'm not going to use it anymore. When it's deeper like this, you have many methods, many way of emit an event. You could emit an event to the big parent with a method we call Vue bus, but here I'm going simply to show you that you can chain the emit events. So in here, what I want to do is to say remove this to-do, the to-do that I have right now. So I'm going to emit an event called remove this to-do, and in here I got to pass to-do as an element, because yes, after the name of your emit event, you can pass an object with params, etc. Of course, you can pass a string, okay, blah blah blah, or you can pass a boolean, a number, whatever. So here I can pass this to-do that I have, and here my to-do list can listen to this remove to-do. And one I can say is that send the message. So send the message, which will be a method that will also emit remove to-do. Okay? And here I got my to-do coming from here. All right? So what I want to do first is to console log the to-do in here. So I get back, and when I click, I get an error. I don't understand why. Let's look at it. To-do is not defined. Okay. Console log to-do, remove this. I made a mistake. Remove this to-do. Okay, all right. Remove this to-do. This to-do. Okay. Remove this to-do. Remove this do to. Yes, okay. Let's say that we are going to call it remove. All right. I update, and I still got the error. Why? To-do is not defined. Oh, okay. You see, I made a mistake. This to-do in here. All right. Okay. And when I click, we see that we want to remove go to the dentist. All right. So here, what I can do is that I emit remove to do from to do list. And of course, up there on to do list, remove element. And in here, what we want to do, we want to remove from the to do list the element that we've got in here. Okay, remove element. Okay. And in here we've got element. And element actually it's to do. All right. So let's see first if we receive to do. Okay, we can splice from the array we have the current index of the to do. So here I'm going to click, and there we go. I can type again drink water. And if I want to remove my to do, there we go. Let's check now a total of the subject than the loops, etc., etc. So we are going to remove our elements in here, and we are going to do a bit of cleaning. Okay, so I'm going to remove all the methods and also the array, and there we go. Okay, so let's say that we want to calculate VTA. Okay, so we've got our value in here, and here I can put numbers. Okay, so here I can put type numbers or number. Okay, type number. All right. So here I can put numbers, and I want to calculate the VTA. So what I could do, of course, if you understood well the previous lesson, is that I can do operation in here. So I can put value multiply by 20%. Okay? So I'm going to update, and in here my value has to be, of course, a number. Okay, so multiply by 20. So this is not the VTA. The calcul for the VTA actually by 100 multiply by 20. Okay, so this is the calcul of the VTA. So for 10 euro, I got 2 euro or $2 of VTA. Okay, so what I can put in here is a dollar, and there we go. And if I go upper, there we go. Okay, all right. So you see that we need to parse int the number that we got, or parse float. So you can test parse int, which is already valuable, and there we go. Or maybe, yeah, there we go. So what we can do instead of doing this operation inside the template is to create what we call a computed property. So this computed property will do the job for us automatically. So a computed property always returns something. It can refer to the data, it can refer to other elements inside your component. But in here, what we want to do is to return this value and in here. Okay? So instead of having the calcul in here, I can put calculate, but I can also, of course, I can also put the dollar in front of it. But you might know that you can calculate this way. What we're gonna do, we are going to use the backticks, and the backticks allows us to here put, yeah, for instance, dollar curly brackets, and there we go. And when I update calculate VTA, there we go. We see that it's calculating the VTA for us. The computed property, it's not a method. You cannot use it to provide action. Computed property, it's like a reactive variable that will manage synchronously to do some calculation or to update elements or to display elements. So let's say that here we will have again a to-do list, okay, and this to-do list will have a model of an ID, so ID 1, and let's say that text feed the cat, okay, and there will be, okay, two other elements, so ID 2, ID 3. So feed the dog, feed the fish. All right. So what we want to have down here, let's say that we want to filter to do, okay, and this filter to do will say that it wants to return to us this to-do list, but filtered, okay, with an ID under 3. All right. So this filter to do, I want to display it in here. Okay. And when I get back and I update, or maybe return. There we go. I forgot the return. Here we see that the calculation is already made. I can dynamically filter with the computed property. Filter my to-do list in here. How amazing is this? How do you manage reactivity and time inside a Vue app? Let's say that at the beginning of your app, you don't want to have value at 0 anymore, but you want it to have it at 2. What you can use, it's what we call life cycles. So life cycles, it's functions that happen at a certain time of your app. And if you look at the documentation, you can look that those instances, so I'm going to put it in English. All right. Here, there we go. You get functions that can be useful if you want to do something at start, etc., etc. So here you get before mount, mounted, before update, etc., etc. So what I propose you to do is to check mounted. So here, next to computed data and components, at mounted, I want to alert, hello, component is just mounted. And what we're going to see is that if I update, we see that behind it, this is white. And the app is waiting for me to say, okay, to load the app, because it's not really mounted. It just created, the virtual machine just created the element and replaced the element with it. Okay? So here I'm going to take OK. And there we go, the app has been mounted. So let's say that when I mount the app, I want to have this value on 0. So what I can do, sorry, this value on 2, because it's going to be on 0. So I can console log before, and I can console log after. Okay? So here, we are going to do it again, and it's really fast. But when I do it, we see that first it was on 0, then it passed on 2. And those life cycles can be used at the beginning of the app, when it is updated, before is it destroyed, and when is it destroyed. Okay? On created also. Most of the time we use mounted and we use created. Mounted is really when the component has been mounted one time, and created is more for function when you want to be triggered when the component is created, or for listeners that listen to events, etc., etc. Just check the life cycles. It's really important when you build your own web app. We just saw the computed properties, who are some kind of watchers. They look at the property and do stuff. But you can also use the watch method. And the watch method is different from computed. Computed really needs a value that it will return. The watch doesn't need any value. It just needs an element to change to be displayed or not. So let's say that every time we want to watch this value. So we want to watch value. And inside value, so here, as you see, I'm referring to value. I could refer to to-do list if I would add a to-do, for instance. But let's say that we are referring to value. Here, I want to display an handler. Okay? So every time value is going to change, it's going to launch the handler function. So I'm going to console log value up, value has changed. All right, so I get back. And here, when we click, we see down here that value has changed. Here, I got 2 arguments. Okay? And those 2 arguments, so first I'm going to remove this. Those 2 arguments, it's old value and new value. So we are going to console log all val, okay, and new val. And which is cool is that here, okay, we see that I pass from 2 to 3, 3 to 4. So here I inverted, but basically we've got our new val, and there we go. Okay, we see that our new val is changing, which is really cool. With a watcher, you can trigger a function that you want to display directly. And if you got an object, you can use the deep true parameter, because an object need to be watched deeply, especially if it's nested, if it contains objects and array, etc. And if it's just the array that changed, use deep true. And also you can use immediate true if you want to display at first, okay, from the start, the change of this element. So deep for nested object, nested element, and immediate for the rest. But there is a disclaimer in here, guys. You should not put too much watchers inside your application. This is really bad for the memory and for the right behavior. Just put at maximum 1 to 2 watchers per component, and try at least not to use them. Work on the life cycle of your application. It's better. Let's say that you have several components in here, and for instead that every component will have the same prop name, and you don't want to write all the time my prop. So let's say in here, instead of to do, okay, here you got also my prop, okay, and my prop. And let's say both of them, you don't want to write them in here, okay? What you want to create is what we call a mixin. So basically in source, you are going to create a new folder called Mixins, and in here you can create a folder called, for instance, prop.mixin.js. And what you can do in here, which is really cool, is that you can export default exactly what you got in here. All right? So let's say that everywhere you want to have props, my prop in here. You can also have, for instance, some data, always the same data. But be safe. Return value 0, for instance. But be safe. Remember that everywhere you are going to import this, it's not going to be the data situated inside prop mixin. It's going to be the data locally. So here, I don't want to have my prop. So basically, I put my prop, but I should put back to do. Yeah, this is better. And to do is a string. So to do, there we go. I can remove this. And what I can do is to import prop mixin from /mixins. So I'm going to get up mixins /prop mixin. And what I'm gonna do is check prop mixin. Okay? So now everything that is inside my export default at start will be injected in here. Okay? And what I can do, if I got a to-do props somewhere else, I could import also my mixin. Why we do this? We do this to not repeat all the time the props, the methods, the component, etc., etc. But be safe, as I told you, the data that you are creating in here, basically, will be related to your local space, to your local context, all right? So you can use mixin to not repeat all the time the same to-do, or to globally use method that you want to have everywhere. Of course, you can have a method called say hello, and you want to use this method everywhere. It's going to say hello everywhere you go. Okay? So every time in a component in here, for instance, if you import prop mixin, what we're going to do, so import prop mixin from, so here, yeah, we are in the good folder, prop mixin, and here, mixins, prop mixin, and p say hello, and when I click, I want to say hello. When I get back and I update, we are on app, and app is saying hello, okay? But the say hello method is not in here, it's in prop mixin, because globally I got the method attached to this. So to summarize, prop mixin helps you to create a model that you copy from components to Vue to not repeat all the time the same code. Why we didn't start by learning Vue.js 3 instead of Vue.js 2? It's because to understand Vue.js 3, you first need to have the basics of Vue.js 2. So basically, what is the main difference? The main difference is the composition API. It's a new way of writing in Vue.js, especially the JavaScript, and we've got new features that helps us to write code differently. So basically, at the original configuration of the template, we've got this setup, and we see that this starter template is using Vue 3 experimental. This is currently, at the time I'm doing this video, experimental, but we are going to see what are those new ways of writing the Vue.js code that we saw before in Vue.js 2. So basically in here we see that we've got this setup, and we see first that there is no components object and no exported default. We see that directly we can import component this way. Also, you see here that we got two elements, which is the contrary that as what I said in Vue.js 2. We got two elements inside the template root in here. But let's look closely at hello world in here. Hello world show us that we've got new methods imported from Vue, such as define props and a new state with reactive state in here. So what I propose you to do now is to compose our first component with Vue.js 3. So I'm going to create a new component called friend.vue, and what I'm going to do first is to create my template, of course, with my div in here, and my script. All right? So basically in my script, I'm going to put the setup, and I'm going to import from Vue the reactive function. Okay? So I'm going to create my state, and my state is going to be a reactive object. So the state, it's here a regular variable. And here I'm going to put my name, so Guillaume in here. And instead of friend in here, I'm going to put hello name in here. But the thing is, basically what I gotta do is to put a state.name because I don't got a name reactive. If I would have my name reactive, I should have put const state name reactive and in here the Guillaume. Alright, but here I got a state. Alright, basically in here what I'm gonna do, I'm going to import my friend component and display it, and when I get back I got my hello Guillaume down here. What I'm gonna do is to remove this here. Okay, alright, so here you see that reactive is basically a reactive variable or object or array or any type that is displayed in here, in difference of the data function that we saw before. So to create a reactive function, you import reactive from Vue in here. Alright, let's now look at the props. So if I want to import some props or create some props, I got to use define props from Vue. And then what I'm going to do is to define these props. And define props is taking an object which props name inside. So now that I got name as a props instead of having as a local variable, what I'm gonna do, I'm going to remove this state and in here put name in my template. And what I also do is to remove my reactive in here. Back in app.vue, I'm going to put my prop Guillaume as a name, and when I get back and I update, there we go. So to define props in Vue 3, you can use define props from Vue. One other thing you might know about setup is that you can use setup in here, or you can also use setup in your export default. Okay? So basically in here, what you can catch is the props object, for instance. So we can console log the props that we've got in here. And when we open it, we see that we've got a proxy, just with curly brackets opening, which is empty right now. We saw before that we can use reactive from Vue, but we can also use ref, okay? So ref in here, for instance, we can create a counter with a reference ref. So I'm going to create my counter with a ref of 0. So I'm going to put hello counter in here, and I'm going to save and get back and update. And nothing happens. Nothing happens because I need to return at the end of setup all the elements that I want to return. So basically in here I can return my counter. So I get back and I got my 0. Amazing. So let's say I'm going to create a new div, or basically we are going to create a button. So this button in here, we say increase counter, and on click I want counter to increase. All right? So when I get back, I update and I click, it is also working. All right? But this time for life cycles, what you can do is to use instead, we used to use mounted, but instead we can use unmounted. And unmounted can take arguments. So basically in here, we're going to try to console log hello. And when we're going to update, we see that it doesn't work because unmounted is not defined. I need to import, of course, my unmounted there. And when I update, I get my hello just in here. Of course, it could be a function. So this function could be say hello, which would be here, console log hello. And instead, what we can do is on console log unmounted say hello. And we see here hello is not defined. Okay. There we go. There we go. Unmounted. It is the same for every lifecycle. They can be triggered inside setup like this. Do you remember the computed and the watchers? It is exactly the same. There is new way to use computed. So basically we've got here say hello, which could be a computed, which will return to us a console log the hello. But here this is not what we want. We want to have a counter multiplied by 2. All right? So basically what I can do here is to display my say hello. So it's not say hello, but it's counter doubled. All right? And I got to return my counter doubled. We see that I got not as a number. Why? Because we need to reference the value of counter. So ref is actually an object that contains a value. And if we console log counter on the beginning, we see here that it's a special object with special value, and we want to refer to value. So now it's okay, it's done. I'm going to increase my counter, and my computed property is doubling my value. Now let's see the watchers, and now watch is replacing watchers. So what we can do is to say watch, and we've got a counter, and we want to be alerted if counter value changed. Counter value changed. So I'm gonna get back update, and when I click, there we go. Okay, our watcher is watching in here with the watch method from Vue. We arrive at the end of this short course. I know I didn't show everything that I could on Vue.js 2 and Vue Composition API for Vue.js 3, but you can find on Medium and especially on Dev2 new tutorials on what is new with Vue Composition. And basically this article, this amazing article, where you create a to-do list, exactly what we did before, but with the Vue 3 and Vue Composition API. All right? So it's not exactly what we did, but through this whole tutorial, you will be able to understand what are the main difference, okay, between Vue.js 2 and Vue.js 3. Of course, Vue.js 3 provides to us a new way to code. This is the future, actually. This is a new way to organize your code and to define elements and to create a saint dynamic inside your components and your views. Okay, so thank you for watching this course and see you next time.